Hello, my finest of friends, and welcome to another RHLSTP, this time for the first time since May 2021. And not because of any lockdown, just because we need to have some more shows. We have gone remote. We have talked to somebody on the other side of the Atlantic, on the far side of America, in Los Angeles. It is the writer, the comedian, the Oscar nominee, the Pot Noodle goblin, little goblin, Peter Baynham. I am delighted to have him back on the show, and this was a lovely chat, a secret one. No one knew about it, and some great stuff about the place of chance, encounters, and good and bad decisions in making your career, but also just a testament to this man who's been at the centre of nearly every great comedy character and project of the last 20 to 30 years. He will be recognised for the genius he is, but hopefully only once he's dead, so he doesn't get a big head. I hope he doesn't die very soon. He's lovely. Look, we're doing some more live RHLSTPs very soon. There will be another remote one coming up next week. I don't know who's going to be on that one yet because I haven't booked them. But we're doing some live ones at the Phoenix pub just near Oxford Circus on Cavendish Square. It's a small, intimate venue. We did some before Christmas with a very small audience, but it was lovely. We'd love to see you down there as well. 17th of January, I will be talking to Laura Jean Marsh, who is the director of Giddy Stratospheres, the film that I recorded, that I was in 2020, that came out last year. Very interesting woman, and you'll hear her story of how she got that film together. And also Bilal Zafar Cakes from Twitch, and from very funny sketch about serial killers, which stars me as well. They're two of my collaborators. 24th of January, we will be talking to Ahir Shah and Mark Watson, who has a great audio book out on Audible at the moment, if you're interested in that. Come along and see that, richardherring.com/gigs. Also at the Bristol Slapstick Festival, the Leicester Comedy Festival, and the Leicester Square Theatre from the end of February. Book your tickets now, my fan friends, richardherring.com/gigs. Let's sit back, relax, and enjoy RHLSTP with the wonderful, the beautiful, the Welsh, the ex-merchant Navy man, Peter Baynham. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome a man. It's 2022 and he's remote podcasting by choice. It's Richard Herring. Hello, my finest friends. This is very weird. Welcome to remote Richard Herring's Lardass Seditious Traitor podcast. We're recording this on January the 6th. 2022. So as a little tribute to Donald Trump and his fans, I'm naming it after him. So I was talking to the insurrection of January the 6th, 2021 the other day, and Jake Angeli, the QAnon shaman, as he's sometimes known, he calls it RHLSTP. So I call QAnon Quanon. So, we're equal on that. Yes, it's the first remote one we've done for what feels like years. We have an international guest, but we have a little gap where we haven't got any live ones to put out. So I think we might try and do a few more of these with international guests. It's very exciting, and we are doing some more live ones very soon. Look at richardherring.com/gigs and you can find out about that. We're going to be at the Phoenix in Oxford Circus and for 2 weeks, and we're going to be at the Leicester Comedy Festival. We're going to be at the Bristol Slapstick Festival, and then we're back at the Leicester Square Theatre, and we're live streaming those, so you can watch them anywhere in the world. The Kickstarter is still going. It's hit its target. RHLSTP.co.uk/Kickstarter if you want to get a season pass or any of the extras, but you don't have to. But you won't be able to get the season pass after that Kickstarter is over. You'll have to pay for individual episodes if you want to live stream it. Up to you. Anyway, looking at the news. I'm able to look at the news because this one's going out almost immediately. The story about the little baby from Nirvana, Spencer Eldon is called. He had made a failed attempt to sue Nirvana for sexual exploitation, because you'll see there his baby Winky is clearly displayed on the cover of Nevermind there, and I expect a lot of people masturbated over that image. The rest of him's there as well. It's not just his winky. Then it would be sexual exploitation. The most surprising bit of the story that I saw, though, was that he has used the people arguing against his argument. He failed to sue Nirvana because it's ridiculous. And the opposing lawyers said he has used his connection to try to pick up women. The word try is doing a lot of work there, and it's noteworthy he has never used the connection to successfully pick up a woman, because who would be into that? Do you want to have sex with the baby from Nevermind? No, mate, I don't really fancy that at all. No, wait, no, now he's grown up, I mean, but you've put the thought of him, by which I assume you mean you, being a baby, and I wouldn't be able to shake that now, because of your approach to this. I'll be thinking I'm having sex with the Nevermind baby while it's happening, and I'm sorry, that's not something I'm into. Good luck in your quest to find a woman who is turned on by baby dicks. No, all I'm saying is I'm famous. I'm the baby from the cover. So you claim, but anyone could say that. But also, even if it is you, you're only famous for being a baby. So I'm going to try and help you out of here. Don't ever use this as a chat-up line again. I thought women like babies. That's a bit of a generalisation. And even if it's true, I would say practically none of them like to have sex with babies or to have a conversation with someone who makes them think about that. I'd say it was one of our main turn-offs. You don't know what you're missing. I'm missing out on having sex with the man whose main achievement was being unknowingly dunked in some water and who decades later has nothing else he can try and impress strangers with. Hold on, I tried to sue Nirvana for sexual exploitation. Who would try and exploit a baby in a way to get people to like them? Oh, wait, I hear it now. My bad. Just remember this. All the people you'll ever have sex with were once babies, so you're not so perfect yourself. In fact, I'm going to sue you for sexual exploitation. Anyway, there you go. There's my... Apparently, I wrote all that, and then someone tweeted me and said, apparently his actual chat-up line was, would you like to see my penis again? Which is possibly much worse than what I just imagined. The other great news, which I will just quickly look at from this week, is the 90 Day Fiancé star. I don't know what that is, because I'm an old man. Made £38,000 a week selling farts in a jar, was been hospitalised because she thought she was having a stroke. I've got the story here. I'll bring my other computer across. It's hot off the presses. She's got 260,000 followers, and she charges $1,000 for a fart in a jar. Now, I've just mentioned my Kickstarter, and this is giving me ideas. If someone will pay $1,000, I mean, her farts are probably quite nice smelling. Mine smell awful. I've just did one just before my guest came on, and really smelled. So I could get that in a jar for you. She was hospitalised because she'd been eating like stuff to try and make her fart, and then she got anxious, and then she had to go to hospital she thought she was having a stroke. She thought she was going to die. I was advised to change my diet and to take a gas suppressant medication, which effectively ended my business. So now what she's doing, instead of selling her own farts, she's selling digital artworks on a blockchain of her farts, which I hope will still sell for $1,000. Absolutely incredible. But, who am I to talk after all the Kickstarter things I've put you through? And that might be next. Hope you're having a good 2002. I didn't stay up for the new year. I went to bed at 9 o'clock because we were really tired. But I was woken at about 1 o'clock in the morning. My start to the year 2002 was my son having a prodigious nosebleed. He said he needed to blow his nose, so I gave him some tissue in the dark. He blew his nose. He handed it back, and it was black, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And then I turned on the lights, and there was blood everywhere. So I don't know if that's symbolic of what's coming for 2022, everyone. Let's hope not. I hope not. Although we were having Christmas dinner, or a couple of days after Christmas dinner, and everyone was joking around. The adults and the kids were all together, and Ernie was doing lots of poo jokes and laughing, joining in the conversation. And I said, come on, Ernie, that's enough. That's enough with the poo jokes. And then he kind of, like a real comedian would, suddenly he crumpled and he said, I don't know any adult jokes, so I have to do poo jokes. And he said it so sadly. And it was just the heart of a comedian. That's exactly, I mean, I could have said that quite easily myself. But there we go. It was a beautiful moment, and I felt bad. So, sorry, I put the wrong thing on. Still getting used to this. That's what I want. It was a beautiful moment, and very telling. He's going to be a comedian, and he's just going to be one like his dad, unfortunately for him. Look, let's crack on. My guest this week, he's been on before. He's probably best known as the traffic warden in Grimsby. That's what we've all seen him doing. That's why we're here today to watch this. Will you please welcome, he's too gorgeous, it's Peter Baynham. Here he is. How are you doing?
I'm good. I've actually tried to pick up women by saying I'm the traffic warden in Grimsby.
And how's that? Is that?
And then I said I told them I was exploited by being, when I was much younger, being used as the traffic warden in Grimsby.
Well, Rob Brydon was the traffic warden in Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, and that was sort of the part that projected him to fame. So I wondered if being a traffic warden in Grimsby had the same... Or the Brothers Grimm, it was called. Was it called the Brothers Grimm in the UK?
It was called the Brothers Grimsby. I think in the US.
Right.
Which I never really understood. And then Grimsby in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Because, they don't know what Grimsby is, do they? So that's... But then Grimsby's still in the title the other way, so...
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Any funny stories from your time on the set in Grimsby?
No. No, I'm not very good with funny stories. I'm just trying to think.
I didn't think there would be.
Yeah.
It wasn't out of all the Sacha Baron Cohen films, that was arguably the least successful one. Have you been?
Yeah, it was inarguably. It was. There's very hard evidence for that, Rich. There's more. It's very clear. No, I remember.
Do you feel it was because of you that's what jinxed it?
I think, I think if they'd taken out my writing, but obviously also the traffic warden's scene is what destroyed it. I do remember getting a phone call on the morning. Not that box office is the only measure of a movie's quality or success, but although it's a very useful one. And I remember getting a call on the Saturday morning to be told how it had done, and telling my wife Sarah, and she just laughed. Just the only appropriate response, and how unbelievably it badly it had done. So it's like
it's a strange business, isn't it? Because it's the same team, exactly the same writers and the same star.
Yeah, I know.
Just sometimes something flies and sometimes it doesn't.
And yet you have I was approached at my wife's Uncle Don's memorial service in Wisconsin in the summer. By a woman who said, "Will you please speak to my son, who's a giant fan of the Brothers Grimsby?" And took me over to this big, shaking 15-year-old boy who was a giant fan of it. I think it has got a fan base in 15-year-old boys, which is obviously where it was aimed.
To be honest, I didn't watch that one for research, and it's one of the ones I haven't seen. I've seen pretty much everything else you've done.
It's got some funny scenes in it, but it didn't. Whatever. It wasn't.
I'm not here just to pick up all the things that have gone badly for you, Pete. That's not just because I know you've got a very successful career, and I'm not just going to concentrate.
Oh, I expected you were. That's what you did the last time I came on. So I do.
Yeah, I do. I've used most of them up, so I'm going to have to talk about. I was hoping you'd have done something else bad since you were last on, but I think everything you've done since you were last on has been good, unless I'm mistaken. Unless I've missed something, I think everything is actually all right. So we'll have to work out on that. What? Well, I suppose I was going to ask you about the chat up lines, which I suppose you've almost covered. But have you heard a worse chat up line than "Would you like to see my penis again?" If you're aware, did you ever try? I was never a chat up line kind of person. I don't suppose you were either.
No. I was terrible. I couldn't chat anyone up. Actually, one time, I did have this horrific experience in LA before I met my wife, where I went out on a date with a woman I had a giant crush on, and I ended up in her house. Really? Oh yeah, we ended up in a gay line dancing bar, and that wasn't good. And I rented I think I was trying to go through a terrible, shameful phase of trying to seem like an interesting British man in America. My method, I rented a convertible Mini. I went on this date with her and ended up back at her house and got very, very drunk. And at one point said to her, that's right, I got bad gas from drinking too much Pacifico beer. And so I went into her toilet because I couldn't stop burping. And I went in the toilet and I was in there for about 20 minutes. And every time I burped, this is so pathetic, I flushed the toilet to cover the sound of the burp. I was very drunk. And I kept flushing the toilet. And obviously then she just thought I was having a massive poo. So it backfired. And then I came out and I sat down next to her, and I remember saying to her, "Do you think we should kiss now?" And she just went, "No." And then I remember being ridiculed by people after that. Like, that's the worst. It's not. It's just ineffective because it shows lack of confidence.
Do you think we should kiss? I don't know. It's quite charming.
It's charming, but if you're not sitting opposite a woman who thinks you've got diarrhea.
Yeah, that's true.
So that
well, things like that can sometimes work, and sometimes they can ruin it. Sometimes some people like the kind of obvious spoken, and some people think it ruins it. If you know, I've been in the situations where I've ruined it by going, "Something's going on here, isn't it?" They go, "Oh, you've ruined it now," and then that's so like sometimes you've got to play it cool, and sometimes you haven't. I guess the problem that's kind of I'm just watching Seinfeld from the beginning again because it's all on Netflix, and that's very much like the kind of thing that would happen in Seinfeld. And when you're watching Seinfeld, you think, why doesn't Seinfeld just say to the woman, "I'm really I've got some bad burps, and that's what I'm doing in here. I'm not doing a horrible shit," as it seems. Yes. But there you go. That's why you don't, because you're sort of worried about it. But I suppose the problem with chat up lines is that they are, I think looking back in my late 30s and 40s, I was dated quite a bit before I met my wife, and I got fairly good at dating, and the skill of it is it's an improvisational skill, isn't it? To chat someone up. So if you go in with something that's clearly a line that you have, at least that one he's written himself, the Nirvana baby man. but they're usually something like, they're usually like something, "Get your coat, you've pulled all." I can't even think of a good one.
Those smooth lines, I can't believe it. Yeah. Although I think that the blokes, I used to think the blokes who did those things, they did it by attrition, didn't they? They would just, obviously some of those guys would now be exposed as having very sinister and horrible. But the whole thing of like, I remember knowing somebody once, just like they would just happily go up to 25 women in a bar and try and talk to them until one of them spoke to them. And it was that, and I was always so terrified from the very beginning to ever speak to a woman. So therefore, but I was thinking that Nirvana man, like, did he not, when he was trading on his babiness, did he ever say anything like, I don't look like that now. My penis is
well, that's what you
go like this. That's me. My penis is bigger now, of course.
It's just that I don't think he did. I think he just thought it was cute, like.
Yeah.
If people knew who you were, because presumably you've then got to go. Yeah. By the way, I'm the baby from the Nirvana. So it doesn't even work unless you go. No. Hi, you'd have to go. Hi, I'm the Nirvana. I'm that baby. That's me. Would you like to see my penis again? And that's too long. Yes. For the joke to work, you have to explain who you are because he's not a known figure. So it didn't. The actual newspaper article says he tried. The lawyer said he tried to pick up women using that, which suggests he never successfully picked up a woman doing that, or it would be he can successfully persuaded women.
I can promise you, I never used my pot noodle catchphrase to try and pick up a woman, but I did get forced. I did get forced to say it in Cardiff many times
during sex.
During sex, yeah, man. I got offered. I got approached during that period of my life in Cardiff by big drunk men with a pint in each hand. Those kind of blokes. So Cardiff by night guys who would just say, "Hey, Jim," and then they'd say, I might have said this on your previous book, but say,
please say it again.
Please, but they would say, "Go, do your catchphrase then." And I go, I'd really rather not say it. And I go, pot noodles, they're too gorgeous in the voice. And then I go, and I'd have to go, "They're too gorgeous." And they go, "Hey, have a drink." And then they'd make me, and then I go, "Thank you very much." And they go, "Have a drink." And I go, "You'll have a drink." And it was like this sort of, God.
But you could have used as a chat at line if you could have gone, "Hi, it's me. You're even more gorgeous than a pot noodle."
And then, God, I want to get in a time machine, Rich, back to Cardiff in 1998 or whatever.
You might have had to go. You might have had to go. "Excuse me, have you seen the pot noodle adverts with the little guy? That is actually me." And I just want to say, "You're even more gorgeous than a pot noodle." Yes. I'd like to slurp you up with a fork.
Yeah, and then that would now come back to haunt me, wouldn't it? I was once in a nightclub with our mutual friend Jez Simmons.
Yes.
Around that time, and there was a man, and I got that. You know that weird time when you got recognised, and you're not massively famous, but you're getting recognised a bit, and I got recognised more for that, just because it was on the telly all the time. And some man kept looking across at me in a nightclub, and I then eventually his mate came over to me and said, "Excuse me," and I went. And I was ready to go, yes. And he said, "My mate says you're looking at him." And I thought, oh my God, I was actually subconsciously looking for somebody to recognize. Tragic. And then I had to explain. No, I didn't explain. Yeah, anyway. Yes, I never used my pot noodle fame.
To seduce women or to... Well, you got some free drinks out of it but not... Yeah. That was... Yeah. They were sort of forced on you, the drinks.
They were, yeah, they were. So,
you know. So there will be no sewing pot noodle. Well, talking of Jez Simmons, let's talk about this first of all. Because Jez, who I just know as your mate from the pub in Balham, though is a successful comedy writer, writes for lots of panel shows.
Buzzcocks.
You and he are doing a podcast together, which is excellent. So how does this... It's called Brain Cigar. I do recommend it if you haven't heard it yet. Are you only able to do that when you're in the same country, or are you doing that when you're apart as well? Because it sounds like you're in the same country.
We've done things apart. I mean, we did a Christmas special, but then in the actual series, we recorded a load of stuff in London, and then shamefully forgot to make the show, and then we kind of edited it, and then did that remotely. But then we ended up having to record little bits and conversations and links that we hadn't got at the time. But then in my towel cupboard, I had to kind of sit in my towel cupboard with a blanket. If you have to do that kind of stuff, where you have to I had to put a quilt over my head.
I've tried it, but to be honest, the equipment we've got and the space I've got, it kind of works okay. So I did do a couple of reads for this podcast in that way when I used to go in a cupboard back there, but it seems to work fine with the setup I've got. So I haven't got to the stage of putting a duvet over my head.
A bit more advanced, yeah. But then we did a Christmas special back when I was back over in November. We recorded a bunch of stuff there. We went back into a studio which got it's a great thing. But I mean, with those, the great liberating thing is it literally is something that it's just really odd, and it's for anyone who thinks it's funny. That's what I love about podcasts. That you've got a massive, massive successful podcast with a huge listenership, and so you have a duty of care. You have a duty of care to your listeners.
I've also got a couple of even more kind of difficult and obscure ones than. But I mean, I think Brain Cigar is very much. It's sort of like it feels like a mixture of a Radio 4 and a Radio 1 sketch show, but allowed to be a bit ruder and a bit more. Which is
weird. When I say
more knockabout,
people can't.
It's weird. It's weird.
What I mean is, I'm hugely proud of it, but I also like the fact that because it's a podcast, without anyone above us going guys, that was a bit weird this week, and we lost 4 people.
That's why it's the successful thing. But also, it's one of those things people might. But this is true of, and I've said this many times. It's true of nearly everything I like in comedy. The first episode you listen to, you go, okay, I don't know what's going on, and I mean, I know you, so that was less the case with this. So I did sort of know what's going on, but you listen to 2 or 3, and then you're really in the world, and then you've really got it, and it's it's sort of that slightly surreal thing. My favorite, I haven't listened to all of them yet. I very much liked you trying to get Bono to babysit for you.
Oh yeah,
when your regular babysitter fallen through. And my favourite bit, and it's Julia Davis, which I didn't realise. Is it Julia Davis doing all the female parts in it? Is that right?
Mostly? Actually.
She might not have done this one though, but the review of the funeral.
Oh yeah, that was
Wales.
Yes.
That one really just floored me. That was when, and the nice thing is you sort of walk. I mean, I suppose this is again true of all podcasts, and hopefully true of my podcast as well. But you're doing something like walking the dog or going on a run or something, and then you just get to something that kind of sort of slightly cripples you. You're unable to move because you're laughing too much. But those were 2 of the bits that. But it's so your relationship with Jez goes back before even you know before you met him on a impro course.
An improv class. I mean, my God, he's got an incredible almost dysfunctionally good memory where he's like traumatized. You know, those people who remember everything and they're tortured. And so he remembers specific dates. He can remember things like, if you say, what was number 3 in the charts in, 1994, whatever, he'll know that. But he also remembers, so I think it's about 91, 92 or whatever like that. We met in an improv class. But yeah, ever since, we've been in an unashamedly indulgent friendship where we just, like that thing where you just think you met two blokes like us down a pub, you'd find us, and you probably have in the past. Find it's quite annoying because it's just this very, very weird world we inhabit where we just find, I don't know, the thing is, and with Jez, it's also like he makes me laugh so much, but also his reactions, his face, like his reactions if I say something really unfunny or stupid, his kind of like bordering on fury and upset at like what I've just said, or what, he once upset a comedian when I was performing at the Bell and Banana, at the Bedford, and he had this kind of look on his face, and we were in the front. He was in the front row. Oh my god, I'm trying to remember who it was. But anyway, the comedian had to stop his act, kind of like during act, and say, "Excuse me, mate." He felt like he was being heckled by Jez's confused face. I don't think he's confused sometimes. He just wasn't. He was confused. Like, even the guy was. You must have that as a stand-up where, like, you're not, the person's not heckling you, but you're really upset by the look on somebody's face. Does that happen?
Definitely.
To you?
Yeah, because you're like, as a comedian, and I think less so. I don't do so many like gigs where the audience don't know who I am now, but I do occasionally still.
Yeah.
Like, because I'm doing my own gigs rather than everyone knows who I am. I don't do those gigs where it's not my audience so much. But but definitely you would always, when I was back doing stand-up, especially in the early 2000s, you would just always see the one person who wasn't enjoying it. You would focus on that person, and they would be looking, and especially they're looking miserable or they're looking confused or upset. Or just and there's every chance they're just pissed off because they've had an argument with their partner, or because if you're in that position, there must have been and they're not massively enjoying the act, and you learn to leave it. There was a point where I didn't, like, again when I came back in 2004, there was one where a woman was really enjoying it, and then I think I started doing some jokes about babies, and this woman suddenly wasn't laughing anymore. And that was very noticeable.
But she was offended.
No, I think something bad had happened to her. But we didn't get to the bottom, So, but then I couldn't leave it, and I was sort of trying to get to the bottom of it, and I was trying to go, well, you can't laugh so much at everything else, and then it's not, it's just a stupid thing to do.
I'm getting in bottom of this baby thing, but tell me, what has gone on in your life?
It's so you're so sort of self-obsessed in that moment that you're not even thinking that, I don't think I'd thought it through to what it obviously was something horrible. I don't know if it definitely was, but she didn't want to talk about it. But then it spiraled out as a result. So I do lots of things there where I try and do the thing you shouldn't do and try to pick out people like that. But it's not. But I think again, as I've got older, and especially once I've had kids, the idea of trying to even bore, I used to do stuff where I tried to bore the audience, and I kind of feel like. I don't feel like if it's your one night out this month.
And
it's
there's just we're aware of mortality now.
There's just someone trying to irritate you.
I won't watch a film when movies it's so bad it's good. I think life's too short now. I read loads of reviews. I don't want to waste precious 2 hours. But Jez is the last person now that I have to sometimes stop myself texting him when it's like 8 o'clock here, so it's 4 a.m, with some terrible shitty pun, just because I can imagine. I laugh imagining him at 4 a.m. I don't like looking at his phone and just going like, what, So on our podcast, like we did a thing at the Christmas special, which was it was like a long story I told him about how, and it was completely made up, because our basic thing for Brain Cigar is like to try and tell stories that like try really hard to make them seem like they're true, but they're not. And so we did a thing about Bowie dinners in one of the episodes where like David Bowie had brought out a range of frozen meals in the 90s, during a fallow period in his career. He just signed himself up to these like Findus type lean cuisine meals, but but to try and do it really, really naturalistically. And so our version of that in the Christmas special was like was where I told a story of a man who'd lived 2 doors away from my gran when I was a kid, who was never around. And you just assumed he died in the war because his wife was quite old. And then we found out that he was actually a department store Santa. But that weirdly, the local department store, Howells, which was really fancy, and I had a real obsession with quality. Once he'd become a department store Santa, they'd made him leave his family and his daughter and go and live in like a little bedsit in Cardiff. But on the inside was decked out like Santa's cottage and live with an orphaned child dressed as an elf. But he had to live there with the windows blacked out permanently and was never allowed to leave. And obviously, when he and the child elves went insane, and they were brought out every Christmas for 3 weeks to be in the grotto at Howell's department store, but they had to live in their own filth, like with a bucket behind the grotto, and they were not allowed any. And then the mother of his daughter, the mother used to bring the daughter to see. The only chance she would ever have to see him was to bring her to see him in the department store, but she was not allowed to speak to him because like that would ruin the magic for the other children. But anyway, we did this thing, and it was like an hour long. And Jess said that was just not funny. That was really just sad. That was really I want to cry. And I thought it's in, you know? And so we pretty much kept it. So like
yeah.
Well,
so it's interesting because it is. Jez and you probably wouldn't get a radio show or a TV. I mean, you might now if you went. I want to do a Radio 4 show. They'd probably go, oh yeah, we'll give you one. So you might get a sketch show, but you wouldn't have the carte blanche to do anything you wanted. And also you're both really great, and it's sort of interesting that
Thank you.
But that's it because I mean Jez isn't really seen as a performer at all. I would have thought, and you've done lots of performing, but become more of a writer.
No, and he's really funny in it.
He's great. It's really good. So I highly recommend it. Very good. Well, and are you going to carry on doing more because it's sort of you did sort of 6 or so, and then
we're going to do more. It's a labour of love. I mean, partly it's also because I write animated movies, and animated movies are like the mathematical opposite, where you write a joke and you really laugh at it. And then 5 years later, you're trying to explain to somebody why it's funny, and you can't remember. Like it's like the most counterintuitive opposite of immediacy. And so it's lovely to do something where you just decide and you make it funny. Yeah. So we're going to do more.
That's what I like about. That's what I've always liked about podcasts is just that that you can just have an idea and do it in the second. Really, you can do it live, or you can you can have an idea that day and have it up by the evening time. It's just when you've gone through that whole commissioning process on the radio or TV and know how long it takes to suddenly be able to just get stuff done. Well, we'll talk about the film in a minute. I just wanted to say. That I know I had cancer last year, Peter. I just wanted to ask you if you were you delighted when you heard I had cancer?
I was so pleased. I was like quiet. I was quietly. I wasn't delighted. I was quietly pleased. But no, I'm sorry you had cancer.
No, it's all right. It's gone. It's gone away now. And as I understand it, that's it. That you'll be fine once you've had it. It's gone. That's it. You're immortal, is my understanding. So it should be fine.
Right, well, congratulations on your continuing.
Thank you.
Being alive.
I don't want to disappoint. It makes you really think about life and what's important, and then for a bit, and then you just go back to being the same and wasting all your time again. Once they tell you you're all right, you go, I won't bother dieting so much anymore. Then if I'm all right.
Have you seen Have you seen the ecstasy of Wilco Johnson?
No, you did mention this to me but I haven't. I was just.
It's amazing for that front of just like him finding out. Well, actually, I don't want to spoil it, but like he gets very, very excited that he's got a seemingly terminal disease. But when you see it, it's beautiful. Beautiful. Really lovely.
I definitely will because I'm writing my own book about the situation. I was doing quite well today for a while, so I'm supposed to finish it by the end of the month, Pete, but I don't think I'm going to do that. Let's talk about the film that your latest animation, because you've done ones before, but Ron's Gone Wrong. It's about robots malfunctioning. Now, I just want to say, I think you've steered it wrong. I was very disappointed that nobody in this film attempted to have sex with any of the robots at all. I mean, they're not that. A, they weren't that sexy, the robots. Right. But B, nobody. But B, I thought, Ron's gone wrong. It's a robot that's gone wrong.
Right.
There's going to be probably get bummed. Someone's going to bum the Ron or something.
When you say like I went in the wrong direction, it feels like I went in the wrong direction for you specifically.
Yes. You can't write a film about robots.
You are the first person who's given. Is it that just I'm going to have to give it 3 stars out of 5 because whilst I enjoyed the set pieces and the robot comedy, I think it failed on a robot sex level.
I just don't think it's realistic that in the whole of that film, nobody would try and have sex with one of the robots.
But again, they are an egg-shaped robot with. I don't think there's any kind of access area. There's there's a charging port somewhere, but I don't think that would be. Well,
that's you designed the robots. You could have put a vagina in there. You could have put an anus and a vagina in them.
I didn't. I had no part in their design, but I mean,
okay,
they're very smooth. I mean, I don't know, But again, this assumes that robots are primarily, or what you're feeling that you feel that robots are largely there as sex dolls.
Not just that, but that would definitely be part of it. And also they're all teenagers as well. They're absolutely. They'd be trying to fuck them. So I don't know why you didn't put that in the film.
Okay, all right then.
That's all I'm going to say.
All right, I'm fairly confident on. I do think I know why we didn't put them in the film. It's that it would be insane. And if it had occurred, the conversation with Disney would have been the notes back from Disney saying we're very happy with the film. However, the scene in the midpoint where Barney, who can't get a girlfriend, decides to develop a sexual relationship with Ron. It's like we feel that
it just could turn a bit. It could be quite dark. You could have just a dark bit in the middle, just a bit of light and shade. That's all I'm saying to you. It's very funny. It's very charming. It's a lovely story about friendship and how we can get lost in our devices and how maybe I guess
but you wanted him to get a little. You wanted him to be more lost in his device.
But apart from that, that's. Do you think it would be? Do you think it's cheating? I've asked you about Frankenstein before, but I'd never asked. Do you think is it cheating in your relationship if you would have sex with the robot, Pete? If you're happily married now, but if you had sex with or your wife had sex with a robot, would you feel that was being unfaithful, or do you think that's?
I think that would be fine.
Yeah,
and that in no way is implying that I have had sex with a robot.
Okay, sure. I mean, you had to when you were researching the film. You surely had to look into every aspect of what robots can do. I tried to convince them. Yeah, I tried to convince Disney that as researching the film, I have to fly to Japan for 3 months to one of those factories that make those companies that make those incredibly realistic, but still terrifying women humanoid kind of things. Yes, but they said no. No, okay. Look, it's maybe you're right. Maybe thinking about it, you made the right choice, but I think
again, I'm sorry, that implies it was a choice, though. That there was that we sat there and we said no, and then we took the robot sex scene card down from the wall and sadly put it in the bin because we didn't. Yeah, I mean, all right. Well, thank you that you feel we made the right choice.
Good. Well, I'm not. I'm a viewer. I've never written a film, and but I've watched a lot of films, so I feel I am an expert on it.
Okay.
And
are you connecting it to the movie? What's the what's it called? The one with Oscar Isaac with the dancing when they dance with there's a sexy dance he does with a robot. That one.
I'm not. I'm not. I just am obsessed with it. It's just a running joke.
Robots. Okay.
So I just did that for the. It's really you got an amazing cast, and is that?
Thank you.
Is that something that because it's a British made film, right? This is a British film. You and Sarah Smith, who used to produce Lionel Nimrod's Inexplicable World and The Harpoon and all of our radio shows in the 1990s. She set up a company with other people, and you and her wrote this film. And so so it's a British film, but you've got quite a lot of a mixture of American and British stars in it, or mainly American, really, isn't it?
Yeah, it was. It was like I think it was like co-financed, and it was like made. It was distributed by Disney, but it had like Olivia Colman and Rob Delaney and lots of brilliant people in it. Yeah. And Zach Galifianakis.
Yeah, when you're writing, are you at the point where you think I'm expecting to get those people to be in it, or is it still a nice surprise when they say yes?
No, I mean, still, I don't know why I haven't developed any confidence. I wish I could, but that and then I wouldn't have to use my pot noodle catchphrase. But no, you see, whenever like this, before you cast anyone, if you say, right, like if somebody says, well, what about Zach Galifianakis for the robot part? Like I always feel like really embarrassed and like, what planet am I on that you would think that one of those people would be in your movie? You know, it just always feels like embarrassing, like somebody's filming this secretly and then they're going to just, that the whole movie has been, the commissioning of the movie has been a cruel prank. You know, maybe it was. You know,
could be. They've taken it a long way to do that.
No, it's really exciting. Like when Olivia Colman agreed, like what? It's amazing. You know.
Yeah, well, she's so busy as well. I suppose it's as an actor, I guess animation is sort of a slightly easier job. I guess it's in time wise at least, so it's easier to fit it in. But it's how long? How many days does Olivia Colman work on the film that you've worked 5 years on?
Oh my God, I don't know. Like, Olivia Colman, if you're listening, I worked a lot more hours than you.
She just waltzes in, does your funny jokes, waltzes
Would it be
out.
Counterproductive to me to attack her publicly on your podcast for not doing as much work as I did?
She could have done some of the drawings. She could have drawn the robot, couldn't she?
She could have had the decency to come to a couple of sessions. But no, I don't know. Not. I mean, they'd probably do maximum, probably about a few weeks. I mean, but they're really, they're really brilliant. Very nice,
Yeah.
Very good. Yeah. And
cool.
Our first session with Zach Galifianakis, it was on Zoom because it was in the middle of the pandemic, and he had to fly somewhere, and he had terrible food poisoning, and it was the first time I'd ever heard, met or spoken to him, and we were like on one Zoom, and he was on another Zoom somewhere. And he was quite grumpy. And even though he had terrible food poisoning, I remember thinking, he's quite grumpy. Never meet your heroes. And then the next session, he was really nice. And I thought, oh, God, I felt bad, No,
that's
really nice.
That's how it goes. When you see those things on Twitter every now and again, when someone will go, who was name the people who were nice and nasty when you met them in real life? You know what I mean? And there'll be lists of people. And I've seen myself. One of them came up when I was both mentioned as being someone who was really nice in real life and someone who was terrible in real life. But I was searching my own name, so I couldn't really say anything about it. Yeah. And but like one of them said, I used to work in Selfridges and somewhere in Notting Hill, and Richard Herring came in and but he wouldn't. And I was so. Because I thought I'd never behaved badly in Selfridges. I was just really trying to think, and I was really tempted to you could just be in a bad mood. Like you're in a shop and you might be ill, and you might just be in a bad mood, or it might just be that you went hey, and I just went or didn't hear or something. But I was so tempted to tweet him and say, "What did I don't mind you don't like me, but what did I do that was wrong?" But like if you're talking about seeing someone the one moment you meet someone in your life, you don't know what's going on in their life, or they might not be ready to talk to you. So like to make that snap judgment about whether someone's a good or a bad person.
I had a confusing thing a couple of years ago when I was back living in Britain doing the movie, and I was with my daughter Neris, who was, she's probably like 5, and we were just about to get on the tube train. And when I come back to Britain, I hardly ever get recognised now. It's like, it's hardcore. Apart from, it's a long way from my pot noodle glory, Rich. When it was 2 times a day at times, But now, if I'm in UK, on an average, I might get once every 6 months when I was back there. I remember getting on a tube train with my 5-year-olds. And I was about to get on. And this man ran up, and I was on the train. And this man ran up. And he was on the platform, and he said, like, "Are you Peter Baynham?" I was like, and Neris now tells this story all the time. But like, he ran up and he said, "I'm a giant fan. Can I get your autograph?" And I was so like in the moment of like, wow, oh God, I got recognised. And I was quite pleased just because it's so rare. that I got a little bit distracted, and I now think I could easily have got off the train, and I have nightmares of thinking, what if I got off the train to sign his thing and the doors had shut and I'd never seen my 5-year-old daughter again? Because she wouldn't have. I nearly cry sometimes. I think, fine. Do you ever do that? Like, this is a random thing of like, think about if you accidentally left your tiny child on a train, and then I then go straight to how would they feel, and then I start actually crying. Then
Well, I think a lot about moments where I've nearly done something that would have been life changing for them,
right,
and haven't done it, and then I think about when my son was very little, we had like a harness, and I didn't use it that often. And so he was sitting in front of, he was sitting in front of me on my chest.
Yes.
And just one time we were getting in the, just loading up the car. Yes. And I was just, I just wasn't thinking he was there. And I was shutting the boot.
Oh my God.
And usually it's a hatch, it's like a people carrier. So it's like the big flat down boot.
Yeah.
And I luckily I brought it down, then I realised, and I think I stopped it before it got anywhere near him. But yes.
Equally
in that moment I could have just gone and like beheaded him. And I often think about what would your life be if you make just a really stupid, tired.
What is it? Our own mad thoughts. You remember the mad thoughts? Of course,
it's like
there's a special subset of mad thoughts devoted to your own children. And what if I did this and that?
But there's something in your brain where you're just thinking, God, But I think the ones where you've come close to doing something accidentally that would have absolutely completely changed your life and and killed your child. Well,
yes, sounds like an episode of Brain Cigar.
What a horrible thing to think we'll talk about. But you at the same time as doing Ron's Gone Wrong, which again highly recommend. It's on Disney. If you got the Disney Channel, you watch the Disney Channel. It's also in the cinemas at the moment, isn't it? In the UK, at least. I don't know if it is worldwide. If it's still in the cinema in America, but it's very good, and you don't have to be a child. You don't have to be a child. It annoys me to say it's very good. And also, you again at the same time as writing that, you got another Oscar nomination for your work with Borat. But I heard you on another podcast talking about Borat's subsequent movie film, and the man called it Borat subsequent. He kept on calling it, but he kept on calling it. It's the word subsequent, not in American. He was really pronouncing subsequent I think it was subsequent or subsequent.
I'm glad I didn't notice that. I would have been really distracted.
Do people in America have the word subsequent?
Yes, I did this. I just don't. God, I want to find that out. Is there any way to research that? Go online and go, because you to go online and go, who was the man who said
find it for you.
Yeah, because you can basically find out anything on the internet now, can't you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
you can, but it's hard to do that because that's a pronunciation thing.
It's very specific,
But you were doing that at the same time. Did you ever accidentally write a thing for Borat and put it in Ron's Gone Wrong by mistake?
Yeah, I know. Well, the thing was, Rich, I was writing a movie. I was writing one movie about a deeply offensive, anti-Semitic, sexually predatory character. And the other one, of course, was Ron's Gone Wrong. Do you see how I upended your expectations?
I did. You did upend my expectations.
That is my favourite structure of joke, by the way. I mean, I don't feel above that structure of joke at all. Do you? The old.
I do.
And the other one. Well, you really.
I like to.
But you're a proper stand-up. You're a proper comedian, though. So you probably go.
Well, I read an old column of yours today, which is a bit like this about that you wrote in the Guardian in 1996. This is how deeply I researched about the "You Start Monday" joke, which is really good. About if you're terrible, you can't play music. Is that trope in a sitcom? Which is you probably feel worse about this in a sitcom, where and you point this out that in all those sort of Saved by the Bell shows, 5 times. 10 times an episode, someone would go, "There's no way I'm going to go to," and then it would cut to, and it would be there, and the audience would laugh. The same, and it was the same joke 5 times. But the "You Start Monday" was one you were.
It's funny. My 8-year-old Neris, the other day we were watching a movie, and she spotted it in a movie. We were watching some movie, and she said, "Oh look, I just." And she loved discovering. She said, "They do a thing where they say there's no way I'm going to play that song in my underpants. Cut to, and then, but I thought she discovered that trope at the age of 8, and I discovered it. I mean, when I wrote that Guardian article, I was in my 30s, and I thought she's way more advanced as a comedic mind than me. I did think that's my girl, and she now loves her. She spotted one way ahead. We were watching Chan-Ji, The Legend of the Ten Rings, the other day, which is quite fun. Have you seen that? It's quite fun. And she spotted them doing that in that movie way before the rest of us. And I thought, yeah, I was very proud that she spotted
nice
comedy structure.
Yes.
Anyway, but yeah, so...
Anyway, yes, so it's sort of... I mean, that's the nature of writing an animated film, I guess, that it's taking so long that you have
doing
to do
other things at the same time. We did have, which I have said, I'm sorry if I've said this on other things, but we had a really weird time when we were filming Borat, and I was away filming that on location or in an Airbnb hiding nearby, not actually on set. But when he was filming a scene at a right-wing rally where he got up on stage and sang an offensive song about the Wuhan flu, and I was in an Airbnb nearby, but we were doing a voice session with Jack Dylan Grazer, who plays Barney, at the same time. And it was really weird. Like, I had my Zoom open, and I had 2 screens open at the same time, and it was just nuts. I was like trying to say, oh yeah, and but I didn't ever go say, yes, I think he should be more anti-Semitic. Can Jack be more anti-Semitic in his portrayal of Barney, please? And then Borat, can you be more lovable?
So I was interested in that. So as the writer of that, because it's so much of it is spontaneous and dependent on what's happening with the other people, what's going on in the situation. But I was wondering if whether you just wrote a load of possibles or whether you were there at the time. So you're sort of there watching it, and are you able to talk to him and
we're normally there. We're there a lot of the time, but we just couldn't be there because it was the middle of it was at the height of COVID. So we were like, it was like, God, what was like? Yeah, it was really in the thick of it. So he does do, like, in a situation like that, he'll do the scene, and then he'll go into a huddle, and then he'll get in contact with us and say, have you got any other thoughts? And should I do that again? And the usual answer is no, get the fuck out of there. Because he just really, it's nuts. But then we do, because there's a full script for the movie. There's a full, final draft screenplay. And then, I mean, we developed this on the first one where you just, you develop it, because even though it's there is spontaneity there, you prepare a whole load of, say this, say this, say this, say this. But then you say, there's the jokes that you say, but there's also the trigger lines. You try and develop lines to get them to respond in a certain way so that he can come back with something else. And sometimes it's not just about the comedy. You're also trying to get that annoying part of movie, which is about the story. Like, every scene needs to have something that propels the story forward. And so we've had scenes in both movies where they're really funny, but they don't do anything for the story. And weirdly, however hilarious they seem in the moment, when you put them in the middle of a movie and then you show it to an audience and nobody laughs at the scene because it's not got any story used to it. So you try and write scenes that will somehow, I mean, the exact, in the first movie, we had a scene where he meets a bunch of frat boys, and and they turn out to be, and they were horrible and they were racists, and we got comedy out of that. But also, we had to have Borat learn that Pamela Anderson was not a virgin from that scene. And so we had to engineer a thing where he shows them the DVD case and says, I'm going to marry this woman, she's a virgin. And they go, oh, dude, she's not a virgin. And then he had to learn from that scene. So it's a lot. Yeah. It's loads of writing, because you're writing not just the lines, but you're writing lots of different contingencies. And, well, if this happens, then we'll do this. If this happens. And we've reshot loads of scenes as well, because they didn't work,
Yeah. So where were you when Rudy Giuliani was attempting to masturbate in the hotel room? or so it appeared. Were you sort of somewhere in that hotel watching?
No, I wasn't, because again, it was because it was a COVID time. But also, I was actually in Northern California with my family in a tiny hotel room. And we were back there recently, and I was watching it at one end of the room on a live YouTube feed, where like you could create. It's very low tech. You basically create like a live YouTube link, and nobody has the code for it. So I was thinking somebody could potentially accidentally stumble on what the hell is this going to? But I was in the room with my wife and my two girls, and then I was watching it live. And then it's all going down. And then he starts to lie back on the bed and take down his, undo his belt. And I called Sarah, said, quick, come on, quick. and Ruby's going, what is it? Nothing. And then we told them to go on their iPads. And then we just went, and I said, oh my God. And then we were back there during Thanksgiving at the same hotel. And I was saying to Sarah that there should be some really obscure memorial blue plaque on that. Because we walked past the room where we were staying. In the hotel. And I said, it was like a motel ground floor room, and I said there should be a plaque saying Peter Baynham's co-writer, like of the thing, watched the like it's the most meaningless blue plaque ever. Yeah. So
was that
so it's a long way away.
If he'd started masturbating, basically Sasha kind of came in fairly quickly to rescue.
Because we couldn't. Yeah, because we were worried about just worried about so many scenes in those movies all the time.
Yeah,
like about what could go wrong, but also could this be gross and horrible and disgusting and whatever. And Maria, who played his daughter Tuta, was amazing and ballsy, and so like just was there and. Just brilliant, but she was super brave. But we also had to go because they had to be on their own, And we thought if it goes weird, it crosses over into exploitation and something. Just you don't want to actually be involved in actual human trafficking. That would be. We don't want to be the Jeffrey Epstein of.
But it's treading a line both in taste, which obviously like. For everyone saying you can't do anything anymore, I mean that film really pushes boundaries and is ballsy. It's dangerous for the performers, to an extent. Yeah. Certainly when he's putting himself in amongst the kind of people who from the news we've seen can just start shooting people they don't like, or or certainly fighting people they don't like. So there's a real element of danger there, and it is pushing boundaries of taste. In an artistic way, but if you had much push, but given that everything's cancelled now and you can't say anything anymore due to political correctness gone mad, it seems you've been nominated. It seems you've been nominated for an Oscar for Oscars, and the film's done pretty well despite all of this. But does it feel? Is there anything Is there any feeling that because he's anti-Semitic, and obviously that's the joke that he's an awful anti-Semite? Yeah. Have you had much? Blowback from being accused of being anti-Semitic yourself
I don't think it ever really what's the word, rationally can be accused of being anti-Semitic, given that Sasha's Jewish and has been on the record as as wanting to expose anti-Semitism. But on the other hand, I don't think that those problems have gone away. And actually there was weirdly that we didn't do much anti-Semitism in the second one. Or much, I don't think we did. There was a few things in there, but because the thing was that in the end is that we'd done one of my biggest worries wasn't so much that it would cause offence, because I think it was, I don't know, unless people are being wantonly missing the point. I think it was generally pretty clear what the satirical targets were in the whole thing, but. On the other hand, I think I was more worried about, as a comedian, you're always worried about going back to that well twice and just being repetitive. And, there's a graveyard of sequels, movies that have gone back and just been rubbish. You're just scared of it being rubbish. Or, and also I think it was there was a worry that would tread, obviously in that movie, one of the scariest things was what would people make of the scene where they do the dance, when she does the whole period dance,
Right, yeah.
And I remember before we before we rehearsed that, I was worried because I was in the room. I'm the really like canary in the coal mine. I'm the real chicken little, quite often going, I don't think we can do this. It's like it's just 2000, it's 2020 now, and we can't do this thing. But what changed my mind on that one was that we went to it. We had a rehearsal, and we were there with Maria, and she was so fucking funny and did it so. And we realized that the key to that was because the danger is you got a bunch of male writers. I mean, we had female writers on this as well. That was really important. We can't do a movie about a man, and his daughter, and how his daughter discovers feminism, and even Borat becomes. It's a terrible word, woke, but becomes a bit more woke. But you can't have a bunch of just men writing that. That would be crap. And so there were female writers, and it was a female writer's idea to do that whole scene in the first place. But I was still worried about it. But then what we realized was that she just owned the scene so much, and the way she danced was so like proud and just like, oh, it's their culture. So the joke ends up being on the people who are offended. But yes, you're always worried about like with that movie, like, can you do this stuff now? I was also, understandably, I was also worried that like, isn't it time that there was a little cancel Borat campaign at the time from people in Kazakhstan.
Yes.
But weirdly, the government of Kazakhstan, who are now literally right now being, this horrific things happening in Kazakhstan right now. But when the second movie came around, in the interim, they had a whole advertising campaign saying, "Come to Kazakhstan, do business in Kazakhstan, or come here for your holidays." And I think they even used Borat. In the interim, because the first movie they were outraged by it to an extent that helped publicize our movie. But you've got to be aware of that it is also like it's another culture, and like we're in a time now where. Understandably, you've got to be careful about any cultures,
I think it does, but it's challenging. I think it's great because it's challenging and it's, and that's interesting. It's sort of, but it's interesting, it's good that it's nominated for Oscars. I'm not saying it shouldn't be nominated for Oscars. I saw the film Bad Trip. Have you seen Bad Trip?
I haven't seen it. Is that the Eric Andre? No?
Yeah, I really love it. I really love it. Because it's the same it's the same sort of idea, but he basically goes out and shows how nice people are by doing stupid things, and then people help him. And you kind of think, they're two very different films, and they're two very different approaches to it. But that sort of joyously life-affirming, funny film without any political intent would never get nominated for an Oscar, even though I'd say it's as fun. I'm not saying it's better than Borat, but I'm just saying it's different than Borat. It's sort of, it's kind of hard, I don't think, to do as a comedy writer, to do gloriously, absolutely just laugh out loud, funny stuff that doesn't necessarily mean anything. But that stuff never gets nominated for like the big Oscar awards, does it? Comedies, it's almost seen as like this inferior thing, and it becomes high. And if it gets close to being serious, then maybe it can get some awards.
But I know what you mean.
Just Spinal Tap is one of the greatest films ever made. I don't think it maybe won some awards, but I doubt it did because it wasn't really successful for a few years later. But it's sort of weird to. It's weird that I think. But as a comedian and as a comedy writer, being funny is the hard. Being serious is kind of easy, right?
Of course. Yeah, and the funny
writing a film about Nazis is easier than writing a film about a robot that you don't even have sex with.
No, I get annoyed every year. But like, did you see the movie? Did you see the Adam Sandler movie called Uncut Gems?
No, I haven't. That's one of the rare ones I haven't seen. It was just started.
Brilliant. It was really brilliant, and I think he should have won the Oscar for best. It was, but I do think there was subconscious. There was something going on that, like, I don't know. Some people just probably thought, well, he's Adam Sandler. He does all those Adam Sandler movies. Yeah. And I think there was something that he just didn't get there for that. I saw a movie last night with my family called Coda. Have you heard of this movie? It's about this really beautiful little movie about it's a British actress actually, but it's about Coda stands for Children of Deaf Adults, and she's just a girl who's got like her parents are deaf, But it seems like one of those movies that you would just see, like on, just a little movie about a sweet moment. She wants to sing. And it feels, but it's so beautifully brilliant done. And I think it deserves an Oscar nomination, but I don't think it'll get nominated for anything because it's maybe I'll champion it. But it's just really, really nicely made movie, But yeah, I know what you mean. It's like, well, it has to have it has to tick another box, doesn't it? So a pure comedy struggles. Yeah, you're right.
And there's a big scene in Bad Trip where he's being fucked by a monkey, like a man in a monkey gorilla costume in a cage, and that's the kind of thing that will never get nominated for an Oscar. But it's much funnier than it sounds. But also it's so lovely because it's basically all these people are trying to help him, and and awful things happen to him, and mainly people just try and help him, and it's kind of nice to see that. To see, especially right now, it's sort of nice to see that side. As in, but your film potentially, possibly altered the presidential race, or at least maybe influenced the presidential race. So, which Bad Trip almost certainly didn't, unless people really took against the being raped by a monkey.
By the way, I did a Guardian article last year publicising Brain Cigar, and I was asked do you think it altered the race? And I said something like, we did our bit.
Yeah.
And I just said we did our bit, but I didn't really think it did, And I was really pleased with the article, except the headline in The Guardian was, we did our bit to change the race. It was like,
But no, potentially. I mean, it was one of the things that, because also, that's there, it's there on film, and you can argue about what he was actually doing, and he can argue about what he's actually doing, but it's still so dodgy, isn't it? And he is so dodgy. I mean, they're all so dodgy. So it's like, it was an incredible thing. Now, I think we did talk. There's a few big turning points in your career. I don't want to keep you for too much longer, but I wanted to talk about this because, and we talked about one of them last time, which was that Sasha rang you up and said, "I'm looking for someone to write on this film." And you said, I'm doing my own sitcom at the moment, so I'm not interested. And Jez, again, your friend Jez was the guy who said, "What the fuck?" You ring him. Do you ever think about how your life would have gone had you not rung Sasha Baron going back? Because there's a film in that. It's the new sliding door. Peter Baynham. Because that, I think you'd have gone on and had a terrific career of some kind, but that is such a pivotal moment, right, in your life.
I only think about that every day. Only every day.
And literally, you'd made a decision, and it's only because you met up with someone and said, "What are you doing the next night?" that you went back on that decision.
Yes, I had that bit in movies, that cheesy bit in movies when the hero sits up in bed, so very suddenly, goes out. 3 a.m.
But there's a few of those kind of things in your career as well, because the reason, which I just saw this today, and I don't think you've told me this before, but the reason you sort of got into the day-to-day, partly having again Armando having rung you up and asked you to come back and work on weekending, and you go, "No, I'm doing a sitcom," and not going back to work on weekending. But you then missed out on maybe being some part of On the Hour and everything as a result, because he sort of got us from weekending and everything. But then you came back in on a Sunday to the BBC entertainment department to steal some photocopy paper.
Yes,
and that's when you met Armando properly, right? Or
making up offensive lyrics to singing Frank Sinatra songs. Making up songs about necrophilia. In a Frank Sinatra style, and in the photocopy room of the Radio Light Entertainment department, And then the funny thing was, he didn't ring me up for a very long time after that, and weirdly, I mean, in between, I mean that did lead to that eventually, but in the interim, I had that weird thing where basically I had that encounter with him. And then after that, my Merchant Navy sitcom, which I got to say, Armando has said, gone on record to say, and I made 2 separate pilots of it, The Men of the Charlie, my Merchant Navy sitcom starring Brian Blessed and John. Have we talked about this before? And John Pertwee.
I don't know. I sort of vaguely remember it from the time.
John Pertwee is a mentally ill man who lived in the engine room.
Right.
and then John Pert, and then we recorded it again. We talked to his spanners, and we'd just say, "Yes, that's my darling, my Duchess, my love, your darling." And then we recorded the pilot again, and then John Pertwee wasn't available. I don't think he died, but he was like very, very old. And then I think he was replaced with Chris Lynham, the comedian who used to put a banger up his arse. Do you remember him?
He's just been a guest on. I've just been talking to him. He's actually the last week's episode, the one that's just gone out.
Did he talk about that?
He didn't mention that. I didn't mention that.
But he, and then very, very weird. And Anita Dobson playing Brian Blessed's wife in both failed pilots. But Armando has said, basically in his very Armando nice way, that it was one of the worst things he's ever heard. He didn't say it was terrible. He just said, I didn't understand it. It was so, but not in a good way. You know, when somebody says it was really weird, but it's a good, it was really weird in a bad way. But anyway, so I went off to, that's why I said no to him to come back to do weekending. And I went off and did this, and then I remember one time it was after the second pilot. And do you remember all those strange old men who used to be the executives? Or those kind of old confused men who'd all go to the pub around the Yorkshire Grey. And this old posh man came up to me, not Jonathan James Moore, who I think, God rest, I think he passed away, didn't he? But
he passed away. Yeah.
But one of those other men, I can't remember his name, came up to me after they'd had their meeting and listened to my Merchant Navy sitcom pilot, and said, "This is a cut too. This is a You Start Monday," because he literally came up to me in the car and said, "Just heard your pilot. Well, there's no way that's not getting a series." And Peter Baynham's like, the cut too was like, it's not getting a series. Like,
you don't start Monday.
You don't start Monday. You stop Monday. And then, but in the meantime, I'd run up a lot of debt, and I'd done things like The Harpoon with Sarah Smith and Julian Dutton, and I'd done this, and I'd quit weekending, and I had like about £5,000 in debt, which was a lot of money in those days.
Yeah,
Rich,
was.
I'll have you know, and still a lot of money. Still a lot of money. And I was very poor, and I had a job. And I went to and I was living in Ealing, and I went to a job agency, and I was due to start in a call center, and then they said, this was the You Start Monday. They said, I was due, I'm not making this up, I was due to start working at a call center on Monday. And then I got a call from the producer of a show called Friday Night with Wogan, which was Terry Wogan's weekly non-live riposte to, I think, to the Jonathan Rosses of the world. And he stopped doing his 3 times a week live show, and it was a recording. Okay. It was an edgier version of and then they rang up and said, "Do you want to come and write Terry Wogan's, little Irish puns?" with 3 other writers, and I said yes. I said I will start Monday. And I remember ringing up the agency and them really being angry at me. They said, "This is not good enough. We can't." Okay, fine. And then I did that for 6 months, and then I got the call.
Yeah.
To go and work on the day-to-day.
But it's sort of interesting, isn't it? I mean, it's how the life is, and I think when you're looking back at life, we've all got this stuff like this. But these moments Chris Morris sort of when you were suggested as a writer for the day-to-day, Chris Morris was sort of saying, "I don't think we need any more writers," and nearly. Who you would then go and work on it with as well, So if he'd had that, if he'd gone, we don't need this guy, then would you work with
those
Chris?
things really upset me, because you find out with those things like it. There's been loads of others like where I used to be crippled by that, because I used to think, if I don't do this thing, because I look back and I go, so many things are like chance encounters. Yeah. Have you ever had that? And then if you think too much about it, then you're really frightened to walk out the door.
Well, you sort of just realise that you only have to change one thing
Yes.
Anywhere, even that your children wouldn't. You change one thing anywhere.
Oh God, yeah, that's really upsetting.
Your children,
yeah.
You've got different children, maybe with someone else, and it's so stupid because you would love whatever those children were just as much. But you're sort of thinking, but I wouldn't have these extra special kids that I've got. It wouldn't be as special.
Well,
every little change, yeah.
Well, I'm so rubbish. I was so rubbish with relationships and as we talked about, the chatting up of it all, or the meeting people, and I was so terrible at it that I think that the one that involves me coming out, to Sasha saying, and me then going to Jez and in the pub, I think in the Bedford in Balham, and saying to Jez, I've said no, and because I'm going to do this thing, and him saying, are you crazy? And then me going, oh shit, I am. And then me ringing up and leaving a message, or speaking to Sasha the following day, that like you say, that leads to me coming here, and then that leads to me meeting Sarah, my wife. And if I'd stayed, it's not just I think I would have carried on working, probably, but I wasn't. I had no work at the time, so maybe I wouldn't have. But yeah, and I don't think I would have. I don't know. It's really upsetting. Think about it.
But but also there's so much of you in in terms of unsung hero of comedy the last 30 years, so many things that people would recognize as almost the main thing. The main thing of Alan Partridge, the first thing people would say from the series I'm Alan Partridge would be monkey tennis, which is you, right? And there's so many things. The running of the Jews from Borat as you. There's so many things that people would pick out, and you've worked with, and they all talk very lovingly of you, correctly. You've worked with Steve Coogan, you've worked with Chris Morris, you've worked with Sasha, and your comedy, and have improved all those people, and had such an influence. I'm sure something would have happened, unless maybe you would just say, I've had enough. I give up. I mean, we've seen writers do that. We know writers who might have stuck it out, who didn't stick it out. So I suppose it's possible. But I can't really think of anyone who's had as much influence as you have throughout all comedy. What do you think? Because you've been sort of at the centre of 4 or 5 major things. So
it's nice. Thank you.
And at the centre of it, because you've created the thing that people love about those characters as well. So it's not surprise. I think you would have somewhat, if you'd said no to Sasha, he might have come back to you another time. He might have even been like, "Oh, this guy said no to me. I've got to really up my game to get him to come in next time." So something would have happened. I think certainly by that stage. But it's interesting.
I don't know that, but he does ask. I now know that when I went in there, that he'd there was a bit of this is quite funny, because there was a kind of a line of bodies out the door of other people that he tried,
Right.
So it wasn't that's the thing as well. I'm also relieved. Well, do you find I'm relieved with the things that have gone right and the right choices are made, but I'm also very glad on several occasions in my life to have not known the full truth of what was going on. Because that might have really frightened me. The weird thing is when I got here, when I got here for that particular thing, I was like, oh my God, I'm going to Hollywood, I'm going to LA and all this stuff. And I got here and he'd broken his foot and the director had quit. I wasn't told any of these things. The director was gone and he was in some really shitty office somewhere. And it was sharing it with some guy who let his dog run around shitting on the floor everywhere. And it didn't seem like any of it was going to last very long. And it was like in the short term, a real come down. And we spent 2 weeks. And he said and they tried to basically go out with they basically tried to go around. The original iteration of Borat, the first Borat movie, was the director had wanted them, and they tried this. The director said, no script, we're just going to go around America and I'll be I'll interview you and I'll be on screen. And this is Todd Phillips, who then went on to make The Joker and loads of other huge, huge movies and The Hangover and stuff. But that was the way they were going to do it. And it hadn't worked and they'd gone their separate ways. but then, so it was like we had to sit down and write a story. We decided to try and write a storyline. We spent 2 weeks in a room writing a storyline. And I think I had 2 weeks on the clock of like, this is how long you're going to be in America. It was my contract. And then we got to the end of that 2 weeks and we gave the script in. And another You Start Monday. We gave it in on the Friday. And then he went to see the studio on Fox on the Monday. And he came back and he said, they hate it. Well, and I remember thinking, yeah, so that's all like, cause, it's just every day is the same. Like every day is like, don't you find just every day is like, none of these things are set in stone ever,
Yeah.
At all. Like I'm feeling right now like a little bit like, shit, am I done?
Yeah, well, but you go through those things. I guess what's interesting about all that as well, though, is I'm thinking, I was thinking of it. Where would Peter Baynham be if he hadn't gone to that photocopy room or hadn't taken that call? But what's interesting is where would Alan Partridge be, and where would the day-to-day be, and where would Chris Morris be, and where would Sacha Baron Cohen be? Because in that instance, if you hadn't gone and worked with Sacha, maybe Borat. I mean, again, I don't think Sacha would have disappeared from the scene completely, but you never know. But Borat might not have been. Borat might not have happened, and everything that came from that. So actually, we should be saying, what if it's them that's been all those people who have been lucky enough to work. I mean,
you're saying the world basically falls apart if Peter Baynham
well, apart from Fist of Fun, which you didn't make any fucking difference to, and didn't help either way.
Yeah, he would have survived. Did you have another sleeping man lined up?
We'd be the only comedy show in the world if we hadn't put you in Fist of Fun and you destroyed it. I think you made no difference to Fist of Fun in terms of success, but in everything else.
Yeah.
In everything else, maybe Peter Baynham, maybe they should be thanking their lucky stars that you were stealing photocopier paper.
Do you know the Pot Noodle of the famous Pot Noodle campaign? That they when we did that, they wanted to make people think pot noodles were. I told you this before. They wanted to make pot noodles seem healthy and good for you. I definitely know this. And it was really complicated campaign and then 2 years in to the campaign. They did research and they came back and the research came back as like, pot noodles are really bad for you. That's the message. We'd completely failed in the message. And from there, they leaned into this is just crappy food for students and men in bedsits. And they went, they gave up trying to make them. So I feel like I did have my effect on pot noodle as well. I helped pot noodle be honest with themselves. Pot noodles
still going because it would have finished without it. So you can still get pot noodles, and a snack like that does not necessarily last through the ages. So I think it's all down.
I think pot noodles like Marmite. It would have been like there's no point in advertising Marmite or pot noodles. They're just a constant.
Yeah.
There's people buy them anyway.
You're like a Merlin figure that you just come in and you weave. And you may be. This may go back beyond the 1990s, back through the medieval times. You may be an immortal being who just comes in and helps people become successful.
Yes.
And I'm frankly annoyed that I worked with you and you did not weave your magic on me and make me.
Let's do another one. Let's do it again.
Let's do Fist of Fun again.
Yeah.
We'll try it again now, knowing what we know. Let's do a movie of Fist of Fun.
Yes.
That's what we need.
I see no barriers to that. I see there's no complications in anyone's relationships with each other. Or...
You just have to green screen. Just have to green screen.
Is there not? Can we not do a get back? Is there not footage we can do a get back? The Beatles, the brilliant Beatles thing. Do you think Peter Jackson would be prepared to spend millions and hundreds of millions of dollars getting the footage from our rehearsal sessions?
They might be, but there was all the studios that went on for so long. So there is loads of footage of mainly me, Stu sitting there looking sullen, and me doing my best to keep the audience going. I think we must have had a warm-up man, but I based it, and I wasn't doing stand-up at that time.
Yeah,
and I think I just sort of took over this role of trying to keep the audience entertained, and we did they were so long, those things. So I would like that because they're very much the Paul McCartney, Paul McCartney of Fist of Fun.
Yeah,
so people would look at it and go, "Oh, it was Richard Herring was doing all that stuff."
Stuart was the John Lennon.
Yeah.
and then I was the Ringo. I want to be the George Harrison.
Kevin Eldon's probably George Harrison.
Yeah.
Sally Phillips is Yoko Ono.
Yeah.
It all works out.
Yeah. And now we've run out of Beatles. But
Alistair McGowan is Alistair McGowan. Who did? Kev did we did a sketch with the 13th Beatle or somebody, or the 9th Beatle or something, where he'd worked out he was the 9th most important. Anyway, let's not talk about that. Look, we've gone on for way too long, and I know you've got lots to do. So I've come to the conclusion that you are a Merlin, making nearly everything good. And look, everyone should watch. Everyone should watch all of the stuff you've done. But Brain Cigar. If you've only got time for one thing in your life, Brain Cigar should be that thing that you put in your life. If you've got time for two things, also watch Run's Gone Wrong. And if you haven't got time to watch a film, then and listen to six episodes of a podcast, then I'm not interested in you being in my. Listen to this. Listen to my podcast first.
Are you firing anyone from your listenership?
I'm going to fire. You
have a shred of decency.
Look, is there any? Do you not know what's coming up next, really, or are you going to do more animations? Are you going to do more?
No, I'm writing a live action film, which I'm waiting to hear right now whether it'll get made into something. Set at a wedding, but not a romantic comedy. Okay. An Altman-esque comedy set at a wedding, and then other things. Yeah, but
good.
I'm going to be mysterious.
Good. You should be mysterious. You've done all right, Pete. You've done all right for a boy.
Thank you, Rich.
From Wales. You've worked your way up, and but also it is true that you that.
And you?
It is. Well, but you were in the Merchant Navy. I know it was a mistake, but you were in the Merchant Navy. You could have gone a very different way in your life. I was always wanted to do comedy, and and had. I mean, I'm more. I guess I didn't have much more of a leg up. I was a headmaster's son, but I was, it was at least a possibility. Whereas I think you're a working class lad who's found your way to Hollywood.
I wasn't working class. There's a long story behind my dad and his.
But you working class. If you work in the Merchant Navy, that makes you working class, because that's all. The Merchant Navy is a working class job. So, in any case, it's possible with a bit of luck. Steal some photocopy paper. Have a mate who tells you when you're being a dick in the pub and tells you to ring back Borat. But it's possible. So it's very inspiring. Keep going, Pete. It's always loved to talk to you. Ladies and gentlemen, the amazing Peter Baynham, King of Comedy.
Thank you.
He's the King of Comedy.
How'd you like them sky potatoes?